Good morning, this is the Carolina Reaper. Today I'm going to talk about the history of Irma. And I'm not talking about Irma from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Nope. I'm talking about the Irma, the hurricane. And I'm going to show you a picture of Irma, Hurricane Irma. It's pretty much its most intense. It's pretty amazing. If you would just hold up here real quick. Storm I'm talking about is that Category 5 monster that ravaged the Caribbean and went into Florida. I'm going to talk about a brief history of it real quick. It was an extremely powerful and catastrophic Cape Verde type hurricane. It was the most intense observed in the Atlantic since Dean in 2007. It was also the most intense Atlantic hurricane to strike the United States since Katrina in 2005, and the first major hurricane to make landfall in Florida since Wilma in 2005. The ninth named storm, fourth hurricane, and second major hurricane of the 2017 Atlantic hurricane season this year. Irma caused widespread catastrophic damage throughout its long lifetime, particularly in parts of the northeastern Caribbean and Florida Keys. Irma developed on August 30th, 2017 near the Cape Verde Islands from a tropical wave that had moved off the west coast of Africa 3 days prior. Under favorable conditions, meaning low shear and no dry air getting into the storm, Irma rapidly intensified shortly after formation, becoming a Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale within a mere 24 hours. It became a Category 3 hurricane and therefore a major hurricane shortly thereafter. However, the intensity fluctuated between Categories 2 and 3 for the next several days due to a series of eyewall replacement cycles, which is pretty typical for hurricanes. On September 4, Irma resumed intensifying, becoming a Category 5 hurricane by early the next day. On September 6, Irma reached its peak intensity with 185 mile per hour, 295 kilometer per hour winds and a minimum pressure of 914 millibars, or 27.0 inches of mercury, making it the strongest tropical cyclone worldwide so far in 2017. Another eyewall replacement cycle caused Irma to weaken back to a Category 4 hurricane, but the storm maintained Category 5 status for a second time while making landfall in Cuba. After dropping to Category 3 intensity due to land interaction, the storm re-intensified to Category 4 as it crossed the warm waters between Cuba and Florida before making landfall on Cujo Key with maximum sustained winds of 130 miles an hour. That makes it a Category 4. Irma dropped back to Category 3 by the time it made a second Florida landfall on Marco Island, which is in Florida, of course. I think I might have said that already. Irma weakened to a Category 2 hurricane later that day, the first time it weakened below major hurricane status in over a week. It eventually dissipated off the coast of New England several days later. The storm caused catastrophic damage in Barbuda, St. Bartholomew, St. Martin, Anguilla, and the Virgin Islands as a Category 5 hurricane. As of September 18th, which was, I think September 18th is yesterday, yep. The hurricane has caused 84 deaths, 45 in the Caribbean and 39 in the United States. So that is the history of Irma. The Barbuda has pretty much been wiped out. The Florida Keys, when it hit them as a Category 4, they've suffered severe damage. And we're looking at a $60 to $90 billion hurricane here in the United States. At storm's peak, the hurricane knocked out 6.7 million to 6.8 million customers were without power at storm's peak in Florida. And it's the hardest hit that state has probably taken since Hurricane Andrew in 1992. So let me, if I'm lucky here, I could show you all some video of Irma as it blew through.
Let's go back to Ginger for more on that Florida threat.
And I thought it was so great he was talking about impacts across the state. You could see inland flooding from Tampa up to, say, Orlando, anywhere throughout the state of Florida, even into the Carolinas eventually. But storm surge, just as the governor was saying, a huge deal. We wanted to give you an idea of what it may look like. So storm surge comes from water piling up in and in front of a storm. As it approaches land, approaches some of those coastal towns and homes, you see how quickly the water can overtake and actually even move from the foundation some of those homes. All it takes is 4 to 6 feet in some cases, depending on what the elevation is. And we know that Miami floods easily. So we just did a worst case scenario here with storm surge to give you an idea of who would be flooded. If you had a 3-foot plus storm surge, you'd see those areas in yellow start to go underwater. You have it higher than that, and we start to see the areas in red go under. So this is a lot of Miami Beach. It's a lot along the coast and a lot around some of those low-lying areas. George, we're going to be seeing this in the next coming days and have details on more of the impacts and that inland flooding.
In the Florida Keys, it's official. Here, henceforth, when you look at this in Wikipedia in a year, you'll see that this storm made first landfall in the United States at Cudjoe Key, just to the west of Isla Morada, at just after 9 o'clock in the morning, and it will be a very long day and into the night. We're not expecting there will be a second landfall, according to the meteorologists. If it's in southwest Florida along the Naples, Collier County, Lee County, Charlotte County line, which is the lower left of your screen there, if it's there, it'll be in 6, 7, 8 hours. If it goes higher, it could be nightfall around Tampa. And if it continues over the Gulf of Mexico, potential for strengthening is there, and this could eventually become a storm that goes even farther up the coast. The truth is the meteorologists do not know. These storms wobble and move left and right as they go forward, and exactly where those wobbles are going to happen, which would create landfall, is unknown. And the reason that matters so much is because the strongest, most powerful winds of all are wrapped around that tight center, the center of that eye. Just all along the walls of that eye, that's where the worst of the winds are, with the most destructive winds. And certainly the storm surge is going to be a problem for a very long time.
Keys this morning for us, where people are getting a first glimpse of all of the damage. Victor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paula and Dan. This is the last checkpoint before Key West. We've seen cars streaming in, residents and business owners finally able to return to see what Irma left behind. This morning, authorities finally fully reopening the Florida Keys. Almost exactly 1 week
a couple
after
days
Irma
ago.
first made landfall in Cudjoe Key. But many returning to the hard-hit area will be coming home to total destruction.
The Keys are not what you left when you evacuated.
Those evacuees now getting a first-hand look at the devastation left in Irma's wake. Streets lined with shipwrecked boats, homes torn apart, businesses flattened.
We're definitely not going to be able to stay here.
Vicious storm surge and Category 4 winds. FEMA saying 90% of all homes in the area were damaged or destroyed, forcing authorities to immediately close off the 112-mile stretch of islands, slowly reopening roads to frustrated evacuees on Wednesday. And the residents who stayed behind...
We should have evacuated, but we thought we would be okay, but I'm sorry.
Finding themselves surrounded by water, but not the kind they can drink, suffering through sweltering heat with no air conditioning and no electricity. Rescuers,
Fire rescue,
and cleanup crews working tirelessly, but still officials warning overnight, enter at your own risk.
Bring your supplies, bring your water, just be self-sufficient.
Although the Keys are back open, there's still about 20 neighborhoods where checkpoints are still set up because those areas were very hard hit. Half of Key West is still without power, and across the state, more than 600,000 customers are still without power this morning as well. Dan and Paula?
So many emotions from the residents there. We know it's going to be a long road to recovery. Victor, thanks for your reporting this morning.
Well, I figure I'd show you some outside storm video footage of what Irma did. The damage in Barbuda is even worse. The fact that as of right now, the island is pretty much deserted. Other than a few people there checking things out, but Barbuda has been completely ripped apart. The only thing that withstood the winds was a couple of lucky wooden structures and concrete houses that were on the island. But Barbuda was hit when Irma was at 180 to 185 mile per hour sustained winds. And as I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with, we need to pray for the victims of Irma. Now we got a new threat. I know mentioned in my video, Hurricane Maria. There's tropical depression Lee out there in the Atlantic, but Lee is going to fizzle out into nothing. And then Jose is that video is a little old, so Jose is actually lining up to bring tropical storm force winds to New England, and then Irma is dissipated. So now all of our eyes are focusing on Maria, which is now a Category 5 storm hitting the same islands. In fact, later on today, it looks to take aim on St. Croix. It already ran over Dominica, an island out there. It wrecked it. It was with 160 mile an hour sustained winds. Maria, she's a bad storm. Guess while I got you all here, this is just going to be one extraordinarily long video, I guess. But what the heck? I got nothing better to do. So let's bring an update on Maria. While we're here, and Maria's the next big thing. Jose, we're not going to talk too much about Jose. Other than it's moving out, it's just bringing dangerous surf conditions to the Atlantic. But let me show you the big deal what we're talking about with Maria. And that's the problem. We got another Category 5 hurricane out there in the Atlantic. And that's no good. So let's I'll show you briefly, and then I'm going to have to wrap this up here, and then I'll talk about it a little more later tomorrow. But we got a forecast to be a major hurricane. Right now, that's where it's at. That's where it's going. And then, of course, the U.S. Virgin Islands is right in the path of this thing, and Puerto Rico looks to take a direct hit from it. Let's go to the spaghetti models. And those are the spaghetti models. So far, it does not appear U.S. landfall is likely because we got Jose and a blocking ridge possible. Jose could help steer Maria out to sea, which is a factor called the Fujiwara effect, which two tropical entities could interact with each other. But some of the models are really confused here as to what this storm is going to do way out here. So still too far to tell, but in the closer term, when the models take more of a track like this, they're a lot better at agreement. That's what we got to contend with. So we'll have to keep an eye on this one, and then I'll give you a more in-depth Maria analysis. But and meanwhile, these areas were hit by Irma. A lot of the same areas took heavy damage from Irma, and this is another Category 5 bearing down on them. So it's been pretty much a very unforgiving season. Just keep them in our prayers. All right, folks, take it easy. Have a good